I'm just going to ask you a few questions, and you can give as many answers as you like, and if you don't like the question, then just don't answer and we'll go on to the next one.
Okay.
But everybody wants to know, how did you get involved in the production of Night of the Living Dead? Well, you know, what were you doing at that time?
I worked, when I finished art school, I went to work for you and Carl.
Right, yes.
And
as a receptionist?
As a receptionist. And I worked there for several years, and Russ used to come in to record different spots, and I went to work over there, and just about the same time you were casting for Night of the Living Dead, and I was really very lucky. I just happened to be there, right, the right place at the right time.
At Latent Image.
At Latent Image, yes.
And you tested for 2 roles.
Yes.
The role that you eventually played and the role that Judy O'Day played, Barbara. Which of those 2 roles did you really want?
I was dreadful when I read for Barbara. I was out of my league. I'd never done any acting. And I think they took pity on me. They liked me. I worked there. And they found a spot for me. They made a little spot for me, and I was very grateful. It was very exciting. But I was not prepared to be Barbara. I couldn't have done that.
Oh. And what did you think of Keith Wayne when you found out you were going to be Keith Wayne's girlfriend?
I think I said, Keith who? He was fun. He was very outgoing, but I didn't know him. And he was a musician and a singer, I guess, in one of the Carolinas. And I never saw him perform or heard him. He never did anything while he was here. He was just what was his name in the film?
Oh, Tom.
Tom. Oh, how could I forget? He was Tom.
Tom.
Yeah, so I don't have any idea. I think he played the trumpet, but he never did it for us.
So when the movie was over, did you go out and buy any of his records?
No, I didn't. I'm really sorry, Keith.
Oh, Keith was here visiting with us a couple of weeks ago, and you know, he is a very crazy person, a seriously crazy person.
Is he really?
A very funny person, and great looking, good looking. He looks great.
He was a real good looking young man. So
he's a chiropractor now.
That is so hard to believe.
I know.
That really is.
Do you have any funny stories in your memory about the production?
Well, I have a different perspective than a lot of other people because I worked with everybody. I worked with you and Carl. I worked with the guys at Latent Image, and I saw them in a different light. I remember George and Jack and Vince Cervinsky. I remember them sleeping in sleeping bags on the floor of the farmhouse so that they didn't have to rent a motel room. And there were a lot of script revisions. I would go home. If you could manage to get home on your own, you were asked to do so, to economize. And it was 30 miles to my parents' front door, and on more than one occasion they found me on this glider asleep on the front porch. That's as far as I got. And then I would shower, and off we go again for another marathon.
I had no idea you were sleeping on the glider those days.
I didn't mind. But the guys were warm and wonderful, and they wanted to get this film done, and they would do anything. Everybody would do anything to ensure that. I was asked at Latent Image to take a makeup course. They thought that in their production work that if I could do makeup, that would be one less freelancer that they would have to bring in. So I took a course at Earl Wheeler, and to complete this course I had to do a full makeup on someone, and Jack Russo volunteered. I did a complete makeup on Jack, false eyelashes, everything. He was so good-natured about it. He's so very masculine, but I don't think he ever hesitated. He didn't think twice about how it would look. He just said, "Oh, I'll do it." And we did take all the makeup off before we left the Earl Wheeler School. But
so there are no pictures of Jack Russo in
I'm
drag.
sure Jack is hoping that there aren't, and I don't believe that there are.
Oh, that's a great story, Judy.
I also remember George he never did laundry. He would just go out and buy new clothes. And there were barrels of rejects, barrels of clothing that he had worn from the gallery, I believe, is where he would just go out and buy a half dozen shirts. And then he'd wear them, and then you'd never see them again. I probably shouldn't tell that.
No, you should tell that. That's great. And you remember Dwayne Jones, I'm sure.
Oh, yes. Dwayne was very quiet and introspective and very dignified, very well educated. I think that Dwayne was the only black man on the shoot, and perhaps he was feeling a little out of place. I don't know, but he'd always bury his head in a book. He was always reading, and he wasn't an easy person to talk with. You didn't have small talk with Dwayne, but you deeply admired him because he was a very classy guy. I liked him very much.
Mm-hmm. And after Living Dead, you were in another film. The working title was There's Always Vanilla.
Yes.
And then it was released under the title of The Affair.
Yes.
And after working in 2 films, how did you feel about acting? Did you think that's what you wanted to do, or was that a bad experience?
No, it wasn't a bad experience, but after that film, Russ and I were about to be married, and my priorities changed. I was interested in being a wife, and then the kids came along, and I didn't pursue it at all. Oh. It wasn't a completely, totally positive experience. You know, it was a difficult film to get through. Again, I think I was underqualified, but I was glad I did it. I was glad I did both of them. Night of the Living Dead was a great deal of fun. Mm-hmm. It was just a very exciting thing to be there. No one knew what was happening. No one knew where it would go or if it would.
That's true. That's right.
But it was fun.
Mm-hmm. So you don't have any regrets now that you gave up acting?
No. Okay. No.
What are you doing now?
I'm not working now, but for the past 12 years I've worked in the production end of the business as a food stylist.
A food stylist?
Yes.
That's an interesting job.
Yes, I would make food look appetizing in newspapers and magazines and television.
Tell us some of the tricks that you do.
Oh, it's not really very exciting. It's a lot.
Do you spray food with
No, I never did anything really awful. I just have a fake ice cream that would stay that way for hours. That would never melt. That was my claim to fame in that industry. But
that
it was
sounds
just
like
it was a job.
Sounds like a good. And you being so artistic, because I remember how very artistic you were.
Oh.
And remember the wonderful caricatures you drew?
I remember those.
Everybody?
I do remember those.
You were so talented in that way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's how I met you. I was standing at the bus stop with my portfolio, and a man approached me and asked me if I did caricatures. And I said that I did, and he told me that he wanted to see my work, and I met him at the brass rail the next evening, and I spread all of my work out on a table, and he said that there were some people he wanted me to meet, and it was you and Carl, and you wanted to have caricatures done.
Who was the man?
It is so long ago now that I cannot remember his name, but I thought later I was taking a terrible chance going with him. Mm-hmm. But he seemed like such an honest guy, and he brought me up to your studio on Smithfield Street, and I met you, and one by one I did the caricatures, and then when I finished them, I was ready to graduate from school, and Carl paid me, and I went to Florida to be in a wedding, and came back and started working for you then right away.
You know, I didn't remember all of that. Mm-hmm. I didn't remember that. Well, one last question. Do you still have your sandals and your red pants that you wore in Living Dead?
I painted in the pants. The pants became my paint pants. So they were spattered and torn and ripped, and I
Didn't you
eventually.
have two pair?
Yes, I did. They were both became. Well, I wore them all the time for everything, for all of my messy jobs and things. I didn't want to part with them. And I think the shirt became a dust rag.
And the sandals?
I don't remember what happened to them. I don't remember. In fact, I had even forgotten that I had worn sandals. I remember the powder blue turtleneck, sleeveless, the jean jacket, and the burgundy pants, but I don't recall the sandals. Yeah.
Judy, it's been great to see you and to talk to you again.
Thank you.
And I
It's been my
know that
pleasure.
all the fans are so glad to see you and to know that you're well and happy and still beautiful.
Oh, thank you, Marilyn.